the Planning Commission for June 27th to order at 6 o'clock my time, at 6:03 on the city's clock. Roll call.
Chairman Cox,
Here.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Here.
Commissioner Yates,
Here.
Commissioner Sanders. Not here. Commissioner Ferris.
Here.
Officer Booth, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Second.
Chairman Cox,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris.
Aye.
Do I have an approval for the minutes of April 25th, 2017?
I have two corrections. Shall I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. Call to order, the time should be 6:04, which is 6:04, but it should say 6:04 PM.
6:04.
6:04.
And
Item 7A, when it comes down to aids, questioned, it should be questioned, it says quested.
add an
Right.
ED.
Good. That's it, thank you.
So I motion to approve the minutes with those corrections.
I second.
Chairman Cox,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris.
Aye.
Okay, this is the public comment portion of our agenda. Persons wishing to address the commission on matters that are within the commission's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Planning Commission may not act on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide name and address. Is there anybody that would like to address us on items that are not on the agenda? See nobody come forward, we will move on. We will close the public comment section and move on to item 7, public hearing. Abatement APN number 418-091-35, located at 840 and 842 West Bennett Avenue. Staff report.
As noted, address in questions 842, 840 West Bennett Avenue. Property owner is a Clifford Smith, deceased July 1st, 2004, 842 West Bennett, Ridgecrest. The executor of the property is Diana M. Paganetti in Victorville, California. Ridgecrest Municipal Code Ordinance violations, 4-15-101A, 12467, B1 and C3. A1, inadequate or inoperable mechanical, electric, plumbing, or sanitation systems or equipment. 2, lack of sound effective exterior walls or roof coverings to provide weather protection. 4, broken, missing, or inoperable windows, doors constituting a hazardous condition or potential detraction to trespassers. 6, broken, deteriorated, or substantially defaced structures visually impacting the neighborhood or presents a risk of public safety. 7, substandard building conditions described in the state housing law, including but not limited to section 17920.3 of the Health and Safety Code. B1, unoccupied, unsecured building or structure. C3, trees, weeds, or other vegetation which are dead, decayed, infested, diseased, or overgrown. As background, the structure was lived in by various family members, to include Diana Paganetti, since the owner's death up until 2013. On May 13, 2014, I opened case 14-1543 for violations of RMC 415-101A, B, and 20-13.6A2, no skirt around the entire perimeter of the mobile home. Ms. Paganetti was subsequently issued a citation on August 19, 2014. The violations were subsequently corrected by securing the property and placing a skirt around the mobile home. Subsequent to closing the case, I made contact with Ms. Paganetti on numerous occasions by phone, advising her of various issues with the property, to include possible squatters in it, all of which eventually were corrected without having to open a case. Ms. Paganetti stated the property continues to be in probate due to the fact that all the relatives refused to cooperate with her to close the probate. During the February-March 2017 timeframe, Ms. Paganetti requested I provide her contact information to contractors in the Ridgecrest area to obtain an estimate for the removal of the mobile home, which I did. At least 2 contractors provided her with estimates. In April 2017, strong winds in Ridgecrest removed portions of the mobile home's exterior covering, and much of the skirt around the mobile home was missing. April 25th, 2017, case 17-1367 was opened based on the RMC violations noted above. The same date, I contacted the Ridgecrest City Engineer, Lauren Culp, requesting he inspect the mobile home in order to make a determination as to if the mobile home was sound or should be abated, demoed. Mr. Culp advised, I believe the structure has deteriorated to a condition in which it is economically infeasible to bring the structure to a safe, livable structure. Based upon past and present observations, the structure shows further deterioration with no apparent attempt to repair. It would be my recommendation that the structure be abated. As there had been no contact with Ms. Paganetti since the initial letter on 19 May 2017, the notice of pre-abatement public hearing to abate property letter was mailed to her, advising her to completely remove, abate the mobile home and dispose of all trash, junk, and debris caused by its removal, and to cut grass, weeds to ground level. The letter added that if she does not do what was required, the case would be heard before the Planning Commission this date. A review of Kern County Tax Collector website revealed $3,528.48 is currently owed in property taxes, which the last time paid was on November 7th, 2011. On June 15th, 2017, contact was made with Ms. Paganetti, who requested I attempt to locate a person, organization that would take over the property, pay back taxes, demo the mobile home, that would benefit the community. She advised she has very little income and unresolvable probate issues. Contact was made with Habitat for Humanity, who is currently considering it and will decide in their July board meeting. Order of abatement to be conducted by the property owner executor. Complete removal of the mobile home on the property, dispose of all trash, junk, and debris from the entire property caused by the removal, and all grass and weeds to be cut to ground level to reduce the risk of fire. That the abatement to be conducted will be completed, or notification obtained by the code enforcement officer that services of a contractor have been obtained and verified to do the abatement, or a commitment from an organization or individual that is willing to take over and abate the property no later than July 12, 2017.
Do you have the pictures that you can put up on the screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the exterior taken just last month.
while you're showing these, why does it have two addresses, 40 and
There-
42?
There's room for two mobile homes,
Okay,
and in the police records and on here, it was just almost intermingled the same.
okay.
But there's only one on site?
There's only one on site. The other one is in the back, which I'll show you where that is here in a second.
Well, it's been coming apart for a while. It wasn't just this year.
No, it has been, because no one's been taking care of it. This porch used to have a cover over it, and that blew off several months ago. See right here, this is the backyard.
Mm.
That's the electric meter where another mobile home can come in.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the commission?
Does the property owners own both lots?
Yeah, that is one whole lot, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Mr. Sanders?
So, thank you. How many times, so when's the last time that you've been contacted, or that you've had some interaction with the property owner, Ms. Paganetti? Has it been a while
Well, the last one was June 15th.
of?
This
okay,
year.
Of this year?
Right. I've been in constant contact with her, and she's been in contact with me, trying to let me know what's going on. Just the fact that her relatives won't cooperate with probate, she has no choice.
So it's an issue that the property is still tied up in some will settlement?
For almost 10 or more years.
Oh, wow. So this,
Because he died back in '04, and they've been trying to do this ever since, or she has.
and no one's living there currently?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions from the commission?
I do have a question. Officer Booth, if the property is tied up in probate, so how do you think Habitat Humanity can take ownership of the property if they want?
I told them they're gonna have to talk with a lawyer to determine
Okay.
if they can do it, and that's apparently what they're gonna discuss at the board meeting next month. If they can't, then I'll have to go ahead with the abatement.
Okay. So when we say takeover, are they buying or just taking ownership?
She's
of-
willing to give it to them.
She wants to give it to them.
All they
Okay.
have to do is pay the taxes, the back taxes, and abate the mobile home.
Okay. So in that case, don't you think it is wise for us to wait till July 4th?
Oh, yes. I put on here July 12th, but if their meeting is after that, or
Okay.
there's some decision, I won't do anything until
Okay.
I get a decision from them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the taxes were last paid in 11?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's 6 years. Now, the county can auction this off after 5 years for non-payment of taxes.
That's correct, but on the website, that, I think it's one of the attachments I gave you, it does
Yeah.
not say it's in power to sell yet for some reason.
Okay, Heather, do you happen to have resolution number 17 dash what?
1367.
We can assign this later if you don't have it. 1709. Okay. So do I have a motion for resolution 1709, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Ridgecrest confirming the findings of the code enforcement officer and the order the property be abated?
So moved.
Do we need to do public comment still? or-
We can, that's true. I apologize
I didn't know if
before
we
we do that. Thank you. Are there anybody in the public that would like to comment on this particular piece of property? Or represents the piece of property? Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Mhm.
Any other comment from the commission?
So I just want to clarify one thing real quick. So this last statement here, if no organization is willing to take over the property no later than July 12th, then if there is no other organization taking it over, then you'll abate it.
That's correct. Yeah, ahead of time, what I'll do is put out requests for bids, get the bids, and if Habitat for Humanity falls through, then I'll go forward with it.
Okay, so this will just give you, I mean, what's the purpose of doing this now as opposed to July or August?
In order to have the authority to tear it down, because right now I have tons of neighbors that have been, bothered by it, from
Sure.
people going on board and the pieces flying off.
Right.
It's a danger to the community right now.
So this gives you the ability to move forward on the abatement until the
Well,
July?
Enforcement too, I believe.
What?
Enforcement of an abatement.
Yeah, if Ms. Paganetti can't do it and Habitat for Humanity says it's not cost-effective for them, then I will abate the property.
Okay, but what I'm saying is you're gonna wait till July anyways to make that decision.
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if there's if there's a purpose for doing this now instead of in our July meeting.
Mainly because if they held their meeting in, say, a week and they say no, then I can move forward with it immediately.
Okay,
Yeah, a decision to be
Okay.
made prior to us having our next meeting.
sure.
Okay, so we'll entertain a motion of the Planning Commission Resolution 1709 for the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Ridgecrest confirming the findings of the Code Enforcement Officer, ordering the property to be abated, and the property is 842 West Bennett Avenue, Ridgecrest, California. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Chairman Cox,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders,
No.
Commissioner Ferris.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to B, it's an order of collection of abatement costs of Kern County Auditor's Collector's Office of Special Assessment for the property located at 315 West Wilson Avenue, APN 478-09207. Staff report.
The Kern County Auditor Controller's Office takes special assessment submittals once per tax year, with submittals required to be in their office no later than June 23rd, 2017. According to Ridgecrest Municipal Code 4-15109, as an alternative to the recording and foreclosure of an abatement lien, the order for collection of abatement costs may require that such costs be imposed as a special assessment against the property on which the nuisance was abated. In such case, a certified copy of the order for collection of abatement costs shall be transmitted to the county tax assessor and tax collector, whereupon it shall be the duty of the tax assessor and tax collector to add the amount of the abatement cost as a special assessment on the next regular bills for real estate taxes levied against the respective properties identified in this order, or in the order. Kern County Auditor Controller's Office requires a resolution to be passed, which includes a list of all parcels with a flat amount as an exhibit, cites state law sanctioning assessment, California Government Code Section 38773.1 B and C, must state that the district is in compliance with Proposition 218, authorization order for the Auditor Controller's Office to place our assessment on the tax rolls to be filed with the Kern County Auditor Controller's Office by August 10th. This resolution verifies to the Kern County Auditor Controller's Office that the city district in question is aware of the charges to be placed as a special assessment and that all proper procedures have been followed. The advantage of placing a special assessment on the real estate taxes is that they will continue to be due until paid or the property sold at a tax auction with no time or expiration limit. A lien on the property, on the other hand, will expire after 10 years if not renewed. Last year, my office received demand for payment from 2 liens for properties that were abated in 2001 and 2003, amounting to over $10,000. However, since the liens were never renewed and the costs were not placed as a special assessment on the real estate taxes, the city was unable to collect that amount. Research by the city attorney revealed Government Code Section 54988C states that a lien imposed pursuant to an abatement shall have the same force, priority, and effect as a judgment lien. This means that the lien has a 10-year lifespan pursuant to the Code of Civil Procedures, Section 683.180. If not renewed within that time limit, the lien expires. Submissions of the special assessments were forwarded to the Kern County Auditor Controller's Office on June 7, 2017. On June 12, 2017, I was notified that they were accepted. In order for them to be placed on the tax rolls of the properties, this resolution must be approved and mailed to them no later than August 10, 2017. Total amount of the liens to be placed as a special assessment in this resolution is $13,212.24. Total amount collected from liens and special assessments to date is $30,490.69. Recommendation that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution for the assessment as described in Exhibit A to the resolution authorizing an order for collection of abatement costs to be entered and extended on the property tax roll, and pursuant to law, the Kern County Auditor Controller's Office includes such amounts on the tax bill applicable to the property for collection therein as a special assessment for the collection of abatement cost.
Any comments or questions by the commission?
I do have a question. Officer Booth, so what is our normal practice? Do we generally do a lien or?
We do a lien immediately after I do the abatement. Then once a year, if they haven't been paid, I do a special assessment to ensure that the city gets their money back.
Oh, okay. And when was this abatement done?
This particular one was done, I believe, last July, August timeframe.
Okay. And the 30,490.69 you mentioned here, is that over a period of years or is that?
That's just within the timeframe I've been employed here, within the last 3 years.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Any comments from the public on this particular piece of property? Seeing that there's no comment, entertain a motion. Planning Commission for Resolution 1710, correct, Heather?
Yes.
A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Ridgecrest authorizing the order of collection of abatement costs by the Kern County Auditor Controller's Office by special assessment. And do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Chairman Cox,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris.
Aye.
Okay, moving on.
Just a real quick update
Yes,
on
sir.
the last one you did. This is the resolution you approved for me back, I believe, March or April. This is the house that burned down, and this is after the abatement. If I can get it to move, there we go.
Wow,
Wow, what a difference.
huge improvement.
Thank you for that, Officer Booth.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to C on our agenda, it's a variance 17-02, a request by the Swans Engineering, Inc. for Ridgecrest Charter School located at 325 South Downs. Street APN 508-02014 for a variance and a parking spacing requirements. Staff report?
Mr. Chairman and Commission, this is a variance request by the charter school to allow for a request to reduce the current code requirement that the parking lot, a parking lot be double striped versus single stripe. For those in the audience, it has to do with, if you've been in parking lots, you'll see two stripes with a space in the middle. That's a double stripe, and a single stripe is essentially a single stripe that you see that you see in other parking lots. The request for this is based on the desire of the charter school to increase the number of parking spaces it will have available from 68 to 83 spaces, we anticipate. That would allow them to reduce their congestion and allow for more parents to be able to drop their kids off during peak hours and provide for more space parking for their location. The approval of the variance would essentially allow the gain of these 15 spaces. In order for the Planning Commission to make this variance, they have to make the following findings and in order to approve the request: that it's a strict or literal interpretation of the enforcement of the specific regulation would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary physical hardship consistent with the objective of the zoning ordinance. Number one, that there is an exception or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applicable for the property involved or for the intended use of the property, which would not generally apply to other properties classified in the same zoning district. Number three, that that strict and literal interpretation and enforcement of the specific regulations would deprive the applicant of privileges enjoyed by owners of other properties classified in the same zoning district. Or four, that the granting of the variance would not constitute a grant of special privilege or inconsistence with the limitations on other properties classified in the same zoning district again, and that granting the variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, and is not materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. The other item I'd like to make a comment on is that our engineering department requested that the following also be read into the record, and that is: upon request for changing of the parking stall separation from a 1-foot double stripe to a single 4-inch wide single stripe delineations, the reason for this particular code section is that the 1-foot separation between the parking stalls offers better visibility delineation in the parking spaces. There's a greater tolerance for vehicle separation for larger vehicles, that fewer cars or truck door opening conflicts, and that greater space for vehicle operation or passengers to walk between the vehicles. In this case, the staff considers this a categorical exemption, so there is no real significant new impact to the environment by how we stripe the parking lot. So we are suggesting that it be a categorical exemption. The staff report that you have in front of you makes no recommendation. However, I would recommend that the staff is very concerned and considerate of the school's desire for this variance, because we believe that child safety in parking lots or in the school area is of much more importance than perhaps a ding door or some of the issues that we just read. So staff's recommendation would be to approve the variance and provide the charter school with the opportunity to not double stripe in this case. This is not a commercial parking lot. This is not to the benefit economically of anybody. It's primarily, again, for the desire to better serve the students and the parents of the school. So, and that basically concludes I'll give you some pictures here, I'm sorry. This is the area that we're talking about off of Downs. I'm sure most people in the audience, and certainly you gentlemen upstairs, up here, know where the charter school is. And the parking area that's described there, and this is the parking design in terms of flow and so on, that's been reviewed by our engineering department and for the proposed project. Again, with the single striping, the request is instead of and the double striping. And that's concludes my staff report on this item.
So, Commissioner comments, I do have one, but if you've got some, I'll entertain yours first.
I have a question.
Mr. Sanders.
Thank you. I'm not really familiar with this part of the ordinance. When is it required for double stripe? When is it okay for a single stripe? As the municipal code is written?
The municipal code identifies double striping essentially everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere is a standard, so that's why we're looking at this as a variance from our standard code.
So all the single stripe parking we see around town is just?
Happened before, this change in the code was added later, correct.
Okay,
If it was done today, it would be double striped by code.
okay.
Any other questions?
I do have one question. I'm trying to understand the need for 83 parking spaces, because the zoning, as per zoning code, they need one per one staff member or something like that, right?
The desire for this parking lot and the plan at the school district, and by the way, we do have the school here and their engineer here, so they can explain their own desire for doing this.
Yeah.
But I can tell you the major purpose is circulation during traffic, high traffic periods. As you know, we've had a great number of issues associated with parents being able to get in and out of that school during peak areas, just like almost all of our schools, frankly, in which kids are being dropped off in the morning and picked up in the afternoon. So the idea is being to provide as much space or capability of parents to be able to do that. They've also not only just asked us for this variance, but the school has also been involved, if you remember, in an easement discussion with a neighboring property to try to get access around where they're doing a variety of things to try to get the traffic problem solved in terms of the school getting its kids in and out. So it's about safety. It's about safety of the kids, as I understand it, primarily.
So parents park their vehicles and then drop off their children, is that what they do there? Okay. Okay. So one question to you, sir, last question. So does the city have any liability if we approve this, if something happens?
No, it's on private property, so we would not, no.
Okay,
And I
thank
do
you.
have, if the folks from the charter school or their engineer would like to come up and speak, they're certainly free to do so. If I haven't
I'd
completely
actually like
answered
to
their
ask a question of the engineer of this drawing anyway. So if you'd, yeah, please.
Up to the podium, please, sir.
So while you're walking up, what I would like you to do is explain your flow. I see here on the south side, I see a stop with the arrows coming in and out, but I don't see the flow past the back portion of the parking lot. On the north side, I see a single arrow that is showing, I assume is an exit, but I'm not sure where they're exiting from.
My name is Bob Swanson from Bakersfield, and I'd be happy to show you the circulation. I think it will be a benefit to the city of Ridgecrest what the school has done. That map isn't a complete map. In your staff report, there's another map that shows the entire parking lot plus the apartment site, and on mine it says page 5, if you have it, page 5.
Is that this one, sir?
Page 4, page 5.
No, keep going, one more. Oops, not that one. Not that one.
These are pictures of the parking lot itself.
I don't think.
Yeah, I'm after a plan that looks like this, that shows all the way to Church Street.
So, I see the flow because you're coming off of Church Street and coming behind the apartments. Is that a 2-lane in and then it goes to a single lane?
Yes, it's actually
And that's strictly for drop-off?
the entire drop-off with the school's direction and security telling parents not to drop off there anymore. The entire drop-off traffic should come in off of Church Street. And the entire length of the apartment site and halfway through the school site will be a drop-off and pickup lane. It's a one-way drive aisle. There's a lane for stopping, and then there's a lane for bypassing those stopped cars. Once you've dropped off your kid, you pull into the bypass lane, and you exit out onto South Down Street, and you make a right turn. So there's nobody waiting to turn left on Downs when it's busy. There are barriers on South Downs now anyway. The left turn's been taken away.
So the entire circulation is gonna be on the south side of the parking lot, right? For the parking lot, because that's all we're talking about really is the parking lot. So right here
Yeah,
where
as far as the parking lot goes, there should be no drop-off in that parking lot anymore.
Okay. So if this is just staff only, it was back to the question of one of the other commissioners, the purpose for the increased parking spaces, if we're not having parental drop-off here, why would we go for additional spaces?
The biggest reason, I think, is the statement that says schools are always short of parking. During the normal school day, you will not fill up this parking lot, but there are special events. There's teacher night, there's graduation, there's musicals, there's all sorts of things, and this will increase the parking somewhere around 10%.
Okay. Any other questions from commission?
Thank you, Mr. Cox. So my kids attend the charter school,
Okay,
so I've got firsthand knowledge of kind of the situation there. A lot of parents do park to walk in to get their children as well. It's just kind of a personal preference, and you do see a lot of that going on. So it's not retrieving children and dropping them off isn't always done in the drop-off lane. That parking lot has been overly congested to the point where people are unfortunately illegally parking all over the place. And it's unfortunate, and we don't want to see that happen. I don't think the charter school wants to see that happen, so I think this is a huge step forward. And just the whole circulation plan in general is something that's been worked on for years now. Starting when I think my first year on the city council, I was working with the charter school on this to figure out a solution, and this is gonna be a huge, huge improvement, so I'm excited to see this.
thank you. Any other commissioner comments or questions for their engineer?
Not for him.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
For me, of course.
Yeah, for this. I mean, did we do variance earlier, or are we setting a precedence here now?
I don't believe we're setting a precedence. This is a variance specific for the striping only. Doesn't have anything to do with the circulation, even though we just discussed that. It's specific to the number of, the distance, whether we double stripe it or single stripe it. If this was a commercial or other kind of use for commercial benefit, then I would be probably telling you, the staff recommendation probably would be not to approve it, because I believe, to be very honest, staff believes that child safety is of primary importance, that we recommend you to approve it.
Any other questions? Any public comment on this particular item? If not, Heather, I notice here, at least on my staff copy. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion, resolution of the Planning Commission of 17-11. Resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Ridgecrest approving a variance 17-02 for single-space drivers in the Ridgecrest Charter School parking lot, changing the parking lot size from 68 to 83 lots. Do I have a so motion?
I so move.
Second?
Chairman Cox,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Hi.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris.
Thank you. You probably should say motion carries, it's obvious, but.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to our D item, conditional use permit 17-01, a request by Crossroads Community Church for the property located at 128 South Silver Ridge Street, APN 080-133-11 for a temporary transitional housing facility. Staff report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is a conditional use, public hearing of a conditional use permit request by Crossroads Community Church, submitted for a single-family residence located at 128 Silver Ridge.
Pictures.
Yes, I do. I will be putting those on as we go along here. It's a single-family residence at APN 080-133-11. This, I would like to clarify, our municipal code does not have a conditional use permit for transitional housing, but rather it would be considered under our code as an emergency shelter. Just so we clarify that. But for purposes of the ease of the public and the planning commission, we have identified it in here both as a emergency shelter and slash transitional housing. The general plan use of a residential, this particular residence was used as it had a prior use, and the prior CUP was issued for the conversion of the residence into a medical offices as a pregnancy care center. The approving of this CUP would change the R1 use to structure to an emergency shelter slash, again, as I said, transitional housing for individuals who require temporary housing as the church regulates and permits, and an emergency shelter as defined by the city municipal code. This shall mean housing with a minimum support services for the homeless persons that is limited to occupancy of no more than 6 months or less by homeless persons. In order for the Planning Commission may approve the application for conditional use permit as applied for or is modified for if on the basis of the application and evidence submitted by the Commission makes the following findings. That the proposed location of use and condition under which it would operate or be maintained will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious or inharmonious. I love the ways we write codes, great words, with properties or improvements in the vicinity. Number two, that there are circumstances or conditions applicable to the land, structure, or use which make the granting of the use permit necessary for the preservation and employment of the substantial property rights, and that the proposed location and of the conditional use is in accordance with the objectives of the zoning chapter and the purpose of the district in which it is sited or located. The surrounding residences around it are in fact single-family residential. For zoning purposes, this is also an R1 or a single-family residential zone area. The site's on 0.19 acres, and we're looking again, environmentally, we're considering it a categorical exemption. No modification or changes will be made to the residence exterior, and I don't believe there's any plans exactly for any extensive modifications or changes to its interior as well. So we're providing that as a categorical exemption. The aerial you see in front of you is the site, again on 128 South River, Silver Ridge. It is a residential neighborhood. Let's see if I can get, there we go. Again, it's in an R1 zone, and it's located between East California Avenue and East Ridgecrest Boulevard. This is the exterior of the home or unit, and again, there's no plans are presented to the department for any exterior changes or modifications to the building or anything else associated with that at this time. We're looking for a categorical exemption, has a couple of sheds in the back. This is the exterior of the building in the rear. Staff would entertain questions or anything that the planning commission would like or the public we could answer for.
Comments from the planning commission?
Just one question, are they closing pregnancy care center, moving it somewhere, or?
Actually, we have not contacted the church about that, but I see some shaking of yes in the head, so of the heads in the audience, so I'm guessing that's the case, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It is located to Ridgecrest Boulevard, a better location. This property had water damage, it was abandoned, not abandoned, but empty for like 6, 8 months, and we've rehabbed for like the last 4.
Any
Thank
other
you.
comments from commissioners? Comments from the public?
Please, you,
Come up to the mic and give us your name and your address, and take a big breath, because we don't bite.
All right, my name is Kara Olson.
Pull the mic down to you.
My name is Kara Olson. I live at 117 South Silver Ridge Street, so it's across the street from this place, and I have serious concerns with this idea. So I feel kind of, I don't know, I feel mixed about it. I feel excited that the Rose Garden Inn doesn't have anyone living there, and it is, I've noticed a change in our neighborhood. It seems a lot safer. There's a lot less questionable actions happening at weird times, and I don't know what else. It makes me feel discouraged to see that our neighborhood would be possibly leaning back towards that direction. So I have a young family, and I don't know, I was excited at the changes that our neighborhood has been having, and I'm not sure how I feel about this. And I also have concerns that overall the resale value for a house at some point might go down if this is not just a normal house that has normal activity. And I think that's it.
Okay,
I don't know, anything else? Okay, and I guess I'm done.
thank you.
Thank you.
I have serious concerns, like, super serious concerns.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Eric Olson. I'm Kara's husband at 117 South Silver Ridge. And
Significant other, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Husband, yeah. Yeah, we just wanted to express our concerns. These Pastor Bill and Dion, they're good friends of mine, and I'd hate to hurt their efforts at all. They have a good heart, and I appreciate what they're doing. But as my wife stated, that neighborhood has been notoriously bad in that area. I see a gentleman in a uniform over there that could probably attest to multiple arrests and people using and selling drugs out of there, and it was very, very frequently had a police presence on the street. Quite often had people walking up and down the alley yelling at each other, swearing, and trying to raise your 3 children in the backyard it's not great. I know we do miss the diner over there, but I'm sure you could probably attest to the environment that the Rose Garden kind of produced in that area. We don't know necessarily if this will be that same thing. We appreciate that there will be oversight. Our concerns are, with the people being able to stay there for 60 days. We don't know. I know if a person were there less than 30 days and say they were a registered sex offender or something like that, our concern is they wouldn't have to tell us. And at our small children, it makes us uneasy, and concerned, you know, so, I really do hate to try to shoot anything down. I go back actually a long ways with Bill there, and I appreciate what he's doing. It's just a concern across the street from us, you know, so that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Jonasson. I'm here on behalf of my father, Frederick Jonasson, and Cindy Jonasson. They live at 240 East California. So it's just right around the corner from us. And I can attest to the neighborhood. I've lived there all my life, and in the last 3 years, I've seen it deteriorate. There have been houses up for sale that have taken forever to either get somebody in there or to sell them. Now they have most of the houses with residents in there, and it's starting to pick back up. No longer do we have the people that are on parole who are getting called up here or over to catch the bus walking up the street for their check-in. Okay, 1. 2, we have concerns about what type of people are going to be allowed to live in here. 1. 2, as far as sex offenders, I do believe you have to notify us and let us know that there is a sex offender living in the area. I don't reside here. I think some of the laws might be a little bit different, but I do think at least the city would owe that to us to put us on alert if that was the case. Also, it says up to 60 days. What's the minimum amount of time can somebody stay there? You know, I can tell you there's very little foot traffic now, and it's nice. And when there's a lot of foot traffic, you know what that invites. That invites a lot of activity, you know, possible drugs, gangs, everything that law enforcement addresses. Also, I have some concerns about their vetting processes. What are their vetting processes that they have here in this transitional house? What are some of the programs that they're going to use to transition these people into the community or into a better life? Because I can tell you, I have gone up to the employment office, and they just said, they have classes, granted it may be different now, but they had classes on interviewing skills and classes on resumes. That was it. You had to figure it out for yourself. You had to develop your own typing speed, which is fine. You had to figure out the computer system if you didn't have any computer experience. They didn't offer courses that way. So I'm wondering, what kind of programs do we have here in Ridgecrest now that can assist these people to permanently get a residence? And what are they attempting to do with that? How long will this emergency shelter be into effect? I mean, are there any long-term goals that they essentially have for this property except leaving it as an emergency shelter where, you know, eventually if the citizens in that area, the residents in that area aren't up on it and constantly current with it, you know what's going to happen is it's going to turn into a halfway house, people cycling through every couple of days, and I can tell you one thing, I'm sure the residents do not want that. And as far as if there are any incidences related to this property, specifically by the people who reside there or their friends, what kind of recourse do the citizens have, do the residents have? You know?
You do have recourse. Okay, in the condition, just as a question that you're asking in A, that the proposed location of the use and the condition under which it would be operated or maintained will not be detrimental to public health, safety, welfare, materially injurious, interesting words, as you said, or inharmonious with the properties and the environment in the vicinity.
Okay, I understand that completely, but I'm have to have? I'm not talking immediately shut it down, I'm talking how many incidents do we have to have before we consider it a problem? How many incidences do we have to have before it shuts down? Or before more serious action or more police patrols begins? I mean, how many times do we have to call the police department saying, hey, there's this person loitering around the corner from us, they're looking in our windows? How many times do we have to call, get the police out there before something's done?
Well, that's a loaded question now. I can only tell you I had a conversation with our police chief who is here, and we could ask him those questions. But the reality is if there is a nuisance, the complaint does come from the public to the police department. And he's assured me that that would then come to the planning commission and this conditional use would be revoked.
Okay.
So that's if we proceeded forward, that would be what would happen. So it's not just we give a conditional use and it's there forever. If these things are violated, if it's not monitored, if it's not performing the way it's supposed to perform so it's harmonious to the neighborhood, then it's revoked.
Okay. And again, I think on behalf of my father, my mother, their main concern is what types of people are gonna be living there and their vetting processes. The church is saying.
Well, that's a good question. We'll ask the church to come up and actually address that.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Any other comment from the public?
Hi, I'm Chris Shields. I reside at 119 South Silver Ridge. I live with my parents. I'm very concerned. I'd had it when Rose Garden was open. Can't count how many times they tried to break into my vehicle, my parents' vehicles, how many times they tried to break into our house. We're very concerned. We don't want to have to live like that again. We do have dogs that do let us know when there are people around our house. Just recently, we've had people trespassing on our property. We ask that if this does pass, you take into consideration the people that you bring into our neighborhood. It's not just us. There's 6 kids that are under 10 years of age, just in our area. There are, I can't count how many seniors that live on our street. Like the lady that was just up here, she lives right around the corner from us, and her parents. Just take into consideration. We already have a problem with U-Hauls on our street. They cause it to where there's just one lane, and you don't know if you're gonna hit somebody when you're turning off Ridgecrest Boulevard. Things like that. I just don't want another Rose Garden incident. We had the drugs, we had the shootings over there, the fights, as people said, the druggies walking up and down the streets in front of our houses, checking out to see what they can get from us. We pay our taxes, we'd like some consideration. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Shields. Any other public comment? Would the church like to come up and address some of these questions that have been raised?
I'm Bill Corley, and this is Deanna Zalmans. She's been putting the program together. Our goal, and she's actually very familiar with it, one of the things, and we're gonna say, just right up front, is we can explain the program, but explaining the program here will not satisfy their needs. Our goal is to not have a rose garden there. We will vet the people through the church. We've been doing Love in Action now for eight months, and we need a little longer season for some family or a person to be able to transition to find a place to live.
We were hoping this would be the place. When the building was given to us, because of our construction background, we thought that it was a perfect match. But we will not go forward if the neighborhood is not convinced. It's a community service that we're doing, and we're not going to upset the community. We certainly wouldn't, it's, the very thing we do is to remove people from the Rose Garden environment. That's our job as a church. So we will not, again, I don't know, you want to say something about the vetting or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like I would like to keep this actually as brief as possible for you guys and maybe help to clarify a little bit. But what I would also like to say is that it may be something where we would just like to maybe open up an invitation to where we can all get together privately in a more setting where we can go over things in more detail. But what I can offer you, just some of the quick things, and I did actually bring several copies of our vetting procedure so that you can actually look at how we plan on doing this. One of the things to confirm what Bill was saying is that it's not our intent. Well, let me just actually say that probably the easiest way to say this is to explain what it is not. It is not a halfway house. It is not going to be a rehabilitation center, and it is not a homeless shelter. We as a church often interact with families who are truly committed to changing their circumstances. They are drug-free, they are working, they're looking for a job, but they find themselves in the margin of needing a place to live, but can't afford to stay in a hotel, and there's really nothing else around. You know, they go to the churches looking for a place to stay because they can't afford to pay for a hotel for another 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, while they're also trying to save up money to get into a new home. So basically what we're looking to do is to be able to work with families like that. As far as our vetting procedure, they would have to apply through the church. It's by application. They do have to be drug-free. They would not have, we would not accept people with sexual crimes, especially child molesting type, children's sexual crimes. We would not put anybody in that home unless we have an on-site manager who will be there to supervise 24 hours a day. The list of requirements that we have not only requires them to attend church services, life groups, special classes, life skills classes, but also to utilize every local resource that we have available through the Employment Development Department, the expungement classes if needed, or resume workshops, all of that. They would have to be required to go through all of those programs. If they don't have a job, they would be required to look for work and list the places that they have been seeking work with follow-up. And we have house rules, so they would have to have chores. There would be visitation rules, visitors only upon approval. There's a curfew. So this is just kind of a brief list of some of the things that we've got in place already that would be the plan. But again, I realize there's probably more questions than we have time to answer for tonight. So what I would just like to offer is that, again, like Bill said, our intent is not, we want to have a great relationship with our neighbors. So if even at the end of the day in answering all of the questions, there's still not a comfortable feeling there, then we will just postpone and wait until something else, you know what I'm saying? I mean, because I totally understand. I'm a mom, and I completely understand where you're coming from, so I can appreciate your concerns. And it would not be our heart to offend anybody, so, yes, sir.
Can I ask a question from my seat here?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know how many people you would have in that house at any one time.
It's a 3-bedroom home. If we have a mom and her kids in one of the rooms, we have a supervisor, an in-house resident will be in one of the others, and that might be the fill of it at that time. The worst, we don't know the numbers. It's not going to be a flop house. That's really what you're asking. And no, if a family's in one of the rooms, and if they need a second room for if they've got 3, 4 kids, well, that's where they're going to be. Because normally we're talking families. We're not talking individuals that just don't have a place to live. But again, can I do this? not gonna, we would suggest we don't take your time, but we just postpone this, meet with the family. If they come back and they still have the same objections and concerns after seeing all our material and our plan, well, then we won't do it. We've invested months and tens of thousands of dollars inside the home at this time to be able to provide something for the community. But we're not gonna blow a neighborhood up. So we'll sell the house and do something else that God leads us to.
So another point for the public to be aware that there wouldn't be any signage here that identifies it as a, any halfway house or anything else. And so it would just be a residential home that has a family in it, correct?
Yeah, we'd like just to meet with them and talk with them. We're sad, we've been doing this for how many months? And we've only had one person actually express interest, and I had a personal meeting with her, one of the neighbors, immediate neighbors there too. No one's come forward and asked, and yet it is the buzz of the neighborhood, obviously. So we would have been happy to do this before, but we'll take the time now, and just back off and say, hey, let's make sure the neighborhood's really comfortable with it. If they're not, if you schedule it for your next meeting, we'll come back. If they come in and say they're not happy, we won't do it.
So I have no problem tabling this. I would say this for the public's consumption as well. Be mindful, if they come to us with a conditional use, there's things that they have to comply with. If somebody owns it and they rent it, you get no choice. In this, you get oversight. And so, if the house was sold and somebody used it as a rental, you don't know what you would get as a neighbor. With this, you would probably know what you're gonna get as a neighbor. So I'm just throwing that out for your consumption. It gives you a broader choice. It gives the ability to police it. It gives the ability to have oversight. It also gives the church an ability to have some compassionate service and try to elevate people up without creating a problem to the neighborhood. So I appreciate the public's input, and I appreciate your willingness to work with them. So I would suggest to the commission that we table it at this time and bring it back after he confers, you confer with them. Do I have a motion so?
So moved.
Second?
And if we could get anyone's name and wants to join in on that conversation, we'd love to.
The staff will provide the.
One more question about the people that you're gonna be putting in it.
Pardon?
Why don't you have that in the meeting with them?
And we'll provide you with our 300-foot notice that'll provide you with all the neighbors within 300 feet that received the letter. So we'll get you that list so you can have it for you.
Appreciate it, thanks much.
Thank you so much to all of you and expressing your concerns. So I hope that
Jim,
helps.
We'll be in contact with all
You have a
of you.
comment?
Maybe once in a while, we have.
Okay, moving on, we're going to the E portion of our agenda. Phase tentative track map 7320. Reconsideration of the request of Cornerstone Engineering with the developer. This was heard, I believe, back in February. And if you've read your packet, I think a number of things have been cleared up over the time preceding. Some of it was in our engineer's declaration of we didn't have certain things, and a lot of those things have come in. So I'm going to have staff report at this time, and then we'll move forward.
Yes, Chairman, sorry, let me move on our slides here. This is the reconsideration of an existing track map that was approved, as was mentioned by the chairman previously. The major purpose for this was the staff was requested by the Planning Commission to please bring this back primarily for clarification of certain conditions and items associated with that. I'm sorry, I have definitely lost where I'm at here. We did consult with our city attorney as to whether or not we have a legal concern in terms of bringing this item back, since it was already approved by Planning Commission and previously. city attorney has advised us that it is possible to do so. However, I would point out that staff would definitely would recommend as a policy, certainly if not legally, that the Planning Commission not do this as a practice, because obviously developers count on the conditions to develop and move forward with their projects. The main purpose, I believe, tonight is not to add conditions or recondition this in any way, which is somewhat of a misnomer in the package, but rather to make clarifications on certain conditions that are in it, both for the applicant and ourselves. Staff has gone through the minutes and the video to make sure that we tried to represent, and we always do, as accurately as possible, the actions of the Planning Commission, particularly relative to the resolution. Just as a matter of statement, if the Planning Commission ever sees, in your minutes or your resolution packages, an error, we certainly want to see that. We want to take care of that immediately. But our secretary has, again, gone through the minutes and through the videos to make sure that we did this. The reason in this particular case was, if you remember, during that meeting, there was a lot of changes to the initial conditions that occurred during the meeting. So there was a lot of back and forth conversation as to items, and sometimes conversation in somebody's mind is part of the resolution that was moved where in fact it wasn't. So we have to, as a matter of practice, this also brings up the fact that staff, you will forgive us if we get a little tedious in saying we'd like to repeat the conditions of the resolution and so on, particularly on a track map where there's conditions associated like this, so that we're very clear as to what those conditions are versus what conversations were, okay, which is the difference. So at this point, we have a couple of things. One of the things that we have, which was, I believe, Heather, we have in the packet, if I'm not mistaken, is the engineering comments that were made for clarification purposes, which the Planning Commission has. This was done by our city engineer in order to clarify some of the issues, and perhaps it might be wise to ask the city clerk to read that for me, please. I mean the city clerk, I keep saying that, I'm sorry, the commission clerk to read that, please. This came from our engineering department.
It says the following preamble has been revised with latest submittal of a phase 10 of track map 7320. City engineer of local agency preamble. The city engineering department has reviewed the latest phase TTM submitted by Cornerstone Engineering. The department review has determined that the latest phase TTM is substantially in compliance with the RMC requirements for tentative track map form and content, and the map is sufficient in order to accurately and adequately condition the project. The conditions of the approval identified in Resolution 1706 are still applicable. It goes on to say there are a couple of items that require either correction or clarification. There are two conflicting notes stated on the TTM. Note 20 under general notes states this map will be recorded in phases. Note 2 under surveyor's notes states this will not be a phased subdivision.
And as of 3 o'clock or 3:30 this afternoon, we received another correspondence from Cornerstone Engineering clarifying the map and removing the surveyor's note, which is reflective of a non-phase map. So we have a phased map, and it's been clarified. So that item in particular has been taken care of as late as 3:30 this afternoon. We received an email, a new map. So with that, I think that basically provides you with the information that the staff has. If council has, if the Planning Commission has some questions or concerns, please identify them at this point. We can answer them. I believe we also have Mr. Witten from Cornerstone Engineering here to answer any questions you might have concerning this item. Again, there's no action being requested, so.
So also for background, as we asked for this to come back, some of the clarifications have, as was said, was have been accomplished. In the old resolution, it talked about things that we didn't have. It now, everything is provided. And so we had a meeting here this morning, went over each one of the items, and I think that it met the spirit of what this commission wanted to achieve without changing it, because we've already approved this. This isn't a reapproval. But to make sure that your conditions are met within that resolution that you wanted. Some of them was the time. You wanted the phases to come back for review. The phases are coming back to the department. And I've got a fly that's part of the process
You're
here.
driving it to me.
And we didn't have on the initial one the design for sump, hydrology report, a lot of these things that are now here that have met those conditions because we were not sure. So if you look at the map, they've designed in here a large sump. We talked about pocket parks versus a large sump. Be mindful, and one of the challenges with this particular development is they're inheriting all the ills of an existing development, and that there was no water retention, and so in their design, they're designing it not only to meet the flow of existing streets, but also in the hydrology that they are meeting the requirement for a 10-year event. I think personally they have met all the conditions, would recommend approval as well. Are there any questions from the commission? Any questions or comment from the public? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Ruth Gleason. I reside at 2109 Del Rosa. The back of my yard would be facing this development. Immediately to the back of it is desert. And I have several concerns to address, if I could, please. First of all, when you say that it's a non-phased.
No, it is phased, so it's 4
Phased.
phases.
Okay.
And they have to come back and get approval. So in other words, it's a tentative track map.
Okay.
So before they can actually build homes and stuff like that, they have to come back to us with this phase, and it has to meet certain conditions, and the city can turn around and make recommendations. For example, last time when we had the meeting on this, the request from existing residents would like to see no 2-story right next to them to obstruct their view. You know, those are the kind of things that we can consider with the developer at the time, but this is just a tentative track.
Right, well, I'm not concerned with that part. I'm concerned more with the fact that, for instance, the area that was developed directly to the north of us previously, if you're familiar with that area, that was developed and all the desert land was denuded. I mean, the whole area was denuded, and they built a couple, 3 houses, and then the developer went out of business, went bankrupt, and it took another, I don't know, 8 years before more houses were built there. And in the meantime, dust, dirt, everything blew from the south-southwest. Our homes are on the south-southwest area. And one of my major concerns is that this area, I don't know where the engineer is, perhaps you will, is going to be completely denuded and not phased. You know what I mean? If you take out all the desert plants, you take away what holds that dirt and sand in the ground. And it's just, when that happened in the area to the north of us, the homes across College Heights Boulevard were hit with huge amounts of dirt. And it was all over the fences, the houses, everything. And so it's really important to those of us that live there that not happen, that we don't find that the desert spring winds bring everything into our homes and yards. Secondly, if you've been out there looking at it at all, any of you, you know that there are huge gullies and gushes of water that come down through there when it rains. We do get rain here sometimes, and it can be, they can be gushers, and they come down, and the drainage part of this is important. Figuring out how it's gonna be done, I'm sure you have, but, we don't want that water coming into our yards because somehow it's not put down what would be now a street, which you're gonna put there.
Where's your home in relationship to this development?
Our home in relation to this development is on Del Rosa, off of Kendall. It's the homes that are, if you see that sign that says West Kendall,
Yes.
okay, Del Rosa is the road immediately to the left of the W there. It runs north and south.
Okay.
Our home is on the left side. There are several other residents here. One other resident here who was on that side, another one who is right across the street on Del Rosa. So we back up right to the desert is what I'm saying. So my concern, first of all, is that all the land not be cleared at once. When is the beginning of this project? Do we know when land will be, start to be taken apart? Also, West Kendall is the main outlet here, and we're concerned. We are concerned about the
Put the
traffic.
mic a little closer to you. I think he's trying to elevate the volume, and that's why we're getting the squealing.
Oh, okay. West Kendall is the main outlet to College Heights Boulevard for the residents in that area. If that looks like it'll be the only major road from the south, or from the north, sorry, trucks coming up to, all the building trucks, all the cement trucks, all the everything will be coming across West Kendall and going to further to the west. That will create a possible problem just with traffic. And then we're looking at all the people that live there leaving on West Kendall. It looks like that's the main exit entrance to the whole 75 home area. So these are my concerns. Thank you very much.
Before you leave, in part of the resolution, in 4, B and C, in the grading improvements, the requirements are all grading areas shall require strict adherence to requirements to control wind-blown dust and sand. The grading plan and the grading permit shall require wind-blown dust and sand control methods specified and approved by the city engineer. And so with each phase, it's not going to be stripped the
Right.
entire project. It'll be working on one phase at a time.
So they'll strip one phase at a time.
Yeah, and then they have to do their best to try and control that wind and sand, but that is one of the requirements that's in
Okay.
the resolution.
And do we know whether they will start out Norma Street or whether they will start towards the area that is already
Well,
inhabited?
we can provide you, I don't know if in the public plan or not, there's phases here.
Okay,
And how soon this developer will develop, we don't know, because it's 24-month, I believe is what we've given in the tentative track.
okay.
And so phase 1, it clearly shows the phase 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, I
So that
appreciate that.
you can kind of see. So that's part of the public record, and I believe that they can get that online, can they not?
Yes, they can. It's part of our package, and if you'd like, you can have my copy.
Okay, thank you.
So I hope that answers some of your questions.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
This is my husband Larry, same address.
Okay, Larry, name, rank, and serial number.
Larry Gleason, 2109 Del Rosa. I had, Ruth said something about the drainage and something that was said, you alluded to the fact that they were going to accommodate the wash.
Yeah.
But does this actually will have houses backed up? Okay, Right.
Yes.
So how are you gonna accommodate that wash? Do you know how much water runs down that wash? I mean, when it rains, it's a river.
Let me get back to you on that. Why don't we meet outside?
Let me give you this copy too. In this phase right here, you'll see this large sump that they're putting in for collection of the water that's coming on not only from this subdivision, but his subdivision.
Yeah, but what about this water?
Well, this is all directed, but he's required to retain his own. So,
Yep.
see, this is part of the problem. Part of his responsibility is his own and some that's coming down here, and they do realize that there's some coming down here as well.
There's more than some.
So it's kind of trying to correct the ills of the past.
Well, yeah, but therein lies the problem. Trying.
Sir, he is also required to provide a hydrology report that our city engineer looks at to confirm what the flows are and how much water is actually happening in these locations. So that's part of the responsibility of our city engineer and the project engineer is to determine the actual volumes of water and how they're going to handle them. So there's a scientific methodology for accomplishing. It's not just a guess.
If you please.
Yes, Daryl.
So, for probably 50 years, the city's just had a policy where they allowed developers to put in subdivisions and just run all the water down the streets. And it's been that way all over town since that's the way the entire town's developed, and it's not just this street, but most of all the downtown streets. When you guys get a good summer rainstorm, the streets are moving. There's water, and it's all heading towards Mirror Lake. And I have no doubt that what you're saying is true, that if you guys get a good rainstorm up on that hillside, there's about 80 acres of residential development that all dumps down through those three streets. There's water coming down Norma, they're coming down Brown Street, and also down Reedy. I have to receive that water and convey it through the tract, and then it has to be discharged because I don't think I can have a big enough facility to keep it all on this tract. And it's not our developer's responsibility to deal with all the rainwater coming down from other people's homes. But we do have a sump sized for there, and the idea of this sump is it's not just gonna be for retaining the stormwater on our site, but it's also gonna serve to receive the stormwater coming from off-site and detain it. In other words, it's gonna slow it down before we have to release it back onto Kendall. This is a problem that we're inheriting with it, and we're gonna have to work with the city engineer to mitigate the problem. But I know there's gonna be a lot of water in that street, and the street's not flat. It's gonna be moving at a pretty good rate. And so it's gonna come down there, it's gonna hit Kendall, it's gonna spread onto Kendall. Kendall's gonna convey the water towards our stormwater sump, and it'll end up in that stormwater sump. If the sump overflows, it's gonna flow across Kendall and on down the hill. But it's gonna be a lot less flow than what's currently going down that hill now. And what's gonna happen is when the area to the north of Kendall develops, they're also gonna have to put in stormwater retention facilities and receive the water that we convey onto them. But all of this water is coming from up the hill and flowing down through our tract. We're gonna have to receive it and discharge it in a manner that doesn't cause a public nuisance, but I don't have any control over what's going on uphill above me. So we're gonna do the best we can with that situation.
I guess what I'm thinking of is, you know, it's not gonna affect me that much,
Mhm.
but when we moved onto Del Rosa umpteen years ago, that street used to run, you know, flood. But it deposited the mud, or the dirt there,
Mhm.
sidewalk to sidewalk.
Wow.
You know, and I'm not talking about an inch deep, I'm talking about, you know, a half a foot deep.
And that was coming from uphill.
Yes, it was.
Mhm.
And if you, I'm sure you've seen the wash there.
Mhm.
That was not nearly that deep when we moved there. I mean, you could easily walk across it. Over the years, the water
Yeah,
has
it's,
cut that.
yeah, the erosion,
And,
right.
and that's an idea of the amount of water coming down there. All I'm saying is, your street may not handle the water that comes down there during a storm. Because there's a lot more water coming down that wash than ever came down Del Rosa.
Mhm.
Well, and that's the purpose of the hydrology report.
Yeah, we're gonna have to receive it and discharge it, and it's gonna have to be conveyed in the street, because one of the problems with Ridgecrest is that most of the town doesn't have any sumps or underground conveyance. And the way the development uphill of us should have occurred is that each developer puts in his own storm, and that's currently the policy. So the current policy that the city has is to require development to retain their stormwater on site, and not cause a nuisance to the people downhill. And we're gonna have that placed on us, but receiving the water that's already coming down there is gonna be a chore, I agree with you. But us and the city engineer are gonna have to deal with that.
I guess what I'm saying is, you're gonna have some unhappy residents along that street after the houses get built and sold, based on our experience on Del Rosa.
Okay, well, we'll have to do what we can to mitigate that, yeah. Could I have a copy? I have not seen the conditions. Evidently, the conditions have been edited?
No, they're the same conditions. The only thing is that old conditions said, we don't have this, we don't have this, we
Okay.
don't have that. And so that's why, from the old preamble, he gave us this as the new preamble, that those conditions have now been met. And that's why I kind of explained to the commission that some of the frustrations that we were having is we're asking to approve a tentative track map, and we don't know what the hydrology report is. We don't know what the traffic flow is. We don't know what the phasing is. And all of that has been accomplished, and that's why I recommended that we reapprove that, so.
Okay. All right. so-
Any other questions from the public, or, yes, sir, come up to the mic, or ma'am?
My name is Denali St. Amand, and I live at 2122 South Del Rosa. First, I would like to stand in agreement with my neighbors who've done a fabulous job of expressing concerns and support them. And I also am concerned about the impact on the environment. There must be an environmental impact statement, yes? A study been done?
Yes.
Is it available to read?
Well, I think in the staff report, he put it as a negative declaration.
So I have seen ground squirrels.
We would be glad to provide you with that information, ma'am, if you'd like. We can get
Okay.
your name and number from or address to the secretary, and she'll get you the information on the environmental review.
I would really appreciate that a lot. I've seen ground squirrels, and I shudder to think of the species that are just going to be bulldozed. And the effect on the homes that are there, is, as they've expressed so well, is negative enough, but the effect on that huge section of beautiful desert land is terrifying. And also, I'm wondering, when we have over 70 homes with maybe an average of 2 cars per home, that's a lot of traffic in the future phased in. Who will pay to have Kendall turned into a 3-lane road, a major thoroughfare? There's going to need a lot of ways to exit onto College Heights and to Norma. It sounds like a big traffic jam to me. And anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, sir?
Good evening. My name's Andrew Hill, live at 224 West Vanessa Avenue. So my house backs up to the empty property right now. I guess my one concern, which I don't really see from the map on the display, is discussion of the development of the roads for all the access, and which roads will actually be improved, paved, and so forth, that are the perimeter to the property. Is that on a different map?
No, this, Cornerstone could answer that.
So the so Norma will actually be paved all the way north and south, as well as Kendall?
When all the phases are done.
When all the phases are completed? All right. Obviously, the roads within the property are paved. Curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Very good. Because right now, Norma has some partial paving adjacent to the existing developed property, and then it is dirt. And then where Reedy intersects Kendall, where there's a tremendous amount of water, is there going to be a culvert or bridge or something to handle the amount of water going through there, or is that?
I'm not sure. We'll engineer something for that.
Because the catch basin is over there toward Brown, is that correct?
Yes.
The center of the property?
Yes.
And so I don't really see the Reedy water I don't know, is that going to be flowed over to the catch basin?
Yeah, we'll probably put catch basins at the intersection right there.
As well, so another catch basin?
Yeah, we'll put pipes there and convey it down to the stormwater center.
Okay, so you'll be able to redirect it to where it needs to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, right now, we really enjoy the view out our backyard, and it's a tremendous, one of the attractions to the area, although we knew that there was the opportunity to develop that area. And so, part of the conditions, we were hoping to at least have that first street of at least single-story homes. It seems like the majority of people want single-story homes, so that's a positive. So hopefully that's the case, and that would at least preserve some of the view that we've become accustomed to.
I'm sure the developer would let you buy the lots, and then nobody could build on them.
Well,
There are those in the valley that have done just that.
Well, if I could get the lots at the price of what they got them for, that might be worthwhile. But I think at the inflated prices they have now, there's an empty lot on, not Del Rosa, on Cielo, $75K for this tiny little postage stamp lot, which I was just amazed, although it's on a developed street with sewer and whatnot.
Well, as I would point out to you, the very things we're asking the developer to do increases the lot price. And then basically, we're asking them to build streets, sewers, flood retention basins and all that. That's what causes lots and developments to go up, is those improvement
Right, and
costs.
all those are expensive items to be able to install.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Come on, man, why do you stand?
Good evening, my name is Yusuf O'Day. I'm a resident on Del Rosa. Question, is this on live television?
Yes.
Yes.
I'd rather not disclose my address for the purposes of the job that I'm in, so. But my house does butt up on the back of that street. Been there for about 14 years now. I'm actually a business owner in town, so I'm pro-development. I'm pro-building, pro-growth, so I'm not gonna object to any of that. My couple of main questions that I have is, obviously this seems like it's in its beginning stages, so I don't wanna get into too much detail. My backyard is right against that. My wall is about 5 feet or 6 feet from the back end, from the desert due to the water problem and the sand basically doing a buildup. 12-year-old or 13-year-old kid can stand behind that and actually look through my backyard. We keep obviously addressing that matter every time it rains. My concern would be is in the future, and as I've tried to pull a permit with the city of Ridgecrest to basically increase the size of my brick wall, I've been rejected due to the way the structure is and the homes there. My question would be to the developer in the city of Ridgecrest is, now that I'm gonna have a neighbor bumping up behind me, I'm assuming, I don't know exactly what you guys are gonna do, if there's gonna be a gap between the fences or an alley between the fences of the house.
Same fence.
So you're gonna use our back brick wall. At that point, their 10-year-old child, if a neighbor moves in and they have a 10-year-old child, they can simply jump behind the fence unless it's developed. I mean, okay. I mean, that's one of my concerns is a privacy matter. Because at this point, I can't raise my fence. And I don't know what authority we'd have after the building of the homes is to actually increase the size of the fence. Number two is obviously neighbors have addressed the concern of the view. We've obviously had an opportunity to have a great view of the mountains, not having neighbors behind, but we understand, I mean, that's public property that was sold and things happen, so other neighbor addressed the impact of traffic. Obviously, you guys are gonna have a traffic impact report, so that's probably at its beginning stages, so I'm not even gonna address that. Dust, I understand under the phase of construction, you're gonna have dust. I mean, it's maybe not. Okay. I mean, I've invested a substantial amount of money into my backyard, being that I'm telling you guys a 10-year-old kid can look behind the fence. You have big tractors back there, and I understand. I mean, construction, some of the things that I do, it just has to be controlled. I understand at beginning stages you have all these conditions that are written, developers, obviously you're gonna have supervision, but you have a lot of construction workers that are gonna be out there that probably can care less about any condition or what they're doing. Sometimes they just wanna leave and get the job done, so I understand as a profession, you guys are gonna take every precaution, but whoever's employed with these construction companies coming, they don't care what they do at the end of the night. Again, I have invested a substantial amount of money from bricks, granite, into my backyard, and I'd hate to have that just ruined due to this. So those are some of the concerns that I do have. Again, I'm pro-growth, so I welcome it, but it's my investment, it's my property, so I'm gonna look out for my investment in my property.
How tall is your fence, sir? How tall is your brick wall?
On my side, I'm gonna say it's 6 foot, but it staggers down. So I kinda got the middle, I'd hate to say where I'm at, but I got the area where it's a staggered down brick wall.
Yeah, steps down.
It steps down.
As it goes north.
Correct.
So Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is they don't have to engineer it unless it's over 8 foot. Is that correct?
7 foot is the current limit without engineering.
Okay.
If it's retaining, however, it does require engineering. If it's a freestanding wall, you can go up to 7 feet without having an engineered plan. If it's retaining, it does require engineering.
Does he need a permit to go up to 7 feet?
No, if it's a freestanding, such as a garden wall, it does not require a permit.
It's a brick wall.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to give you that information is you can go to 7 feet unless it's a retaining wall. And,
This was about 8, 9 years ago that I came about to increase the size of it due to having problems with the back. Obviously, I'm not gonna have that problem with homes being developed back there at this point, because that gets rid of the desert area where kids are back there, dirt bike rides. My next concern is neighbors, accessing it. Looks like based on this map that I'll be splitting 2 neighbors.
and it could be. I just wanted you to know that you had alternatives. If you felt like you needed to raise it a little bit, you could raise it a little bit without a permit, but anything over 7 foot, then you'd have to have it engineered.
Okay, I don't remember what my request was 8 years ago, but we were brought here, and obviously I had neighbors that rejected, and it was kindly rejected, so.
All right, well, that's your options and that you can deal with as far as your fence.
Okay.
Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Are there any other public comments? Commissioner comments? Questions for Daryl or anybody? Okay, so since this is a reconsideration, we've already approved this tentative track map, but I would consider a motion to reaffirm a phased tentative track map 7320, Planning Commission Resolution 17, is it still -12? Okay. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Ridgecrest to approve a phased tentative track map 7320 APN 510-020-02 to develop the property next to Kendall in College Heights. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Chairman Cox,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders,
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris.
Aye.
4 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our item F. Land use zone change, GPA 17-01 and ZC 17-01, request by Cornerstone Engineering for vacant property located at 850 and 900 South Down Street, APN 479-010-12, Parcel 2, and PM 7712 from general commercial to R3 for an apartment complex. If you remember this last time, this was the zone change that had to happen first. Staff report?
Yes, Chairman and Commission, this is a request for a land use, 2 pieces. One is for a land use change for one parcel from a general commercial down to a R2, R3 zoning residential. And land use is essentially commercial to land use. And then the overlying zoning would be changed from general commercial to R3. So basically, we have 2 requests here. This is a public hearing. And what we are doing is simply allowing for the developer who wishes to develop. If you remember during the last meeting, we initially started with a phase map that they were asking for approval of phase 1 of the map. Phase 1 of the map was all on R2 land, so there was no zoning change or needed or any, the zoning was appropriate for the use that they were proposing. When they then during the meeting asked to change to have the entire map approved, which included other phases which entered into the CG land, or the general commercial land, which does not allow the underlying, although the zoning would allow for it, the underlying land use is commercial and does not allow for residential under the general plan. So we need to change the land on the parcel that is identified in the slide that I have in front of you on Bowman and Downs, from a general commercial, or essentially a commercial land use under the general plan, to a residential use. And that's the first thing we would like the Planning Commission to consider. The second thing would then be as a second resolution and motion, would be to ask you to change the zoning from the current commercial to a residential use as well, R3, to allow for the development of the proposed map, or the owners are requesting that change. Staff is in recommendation that you do this, and then following this action tonight, we will then need to go to this item will then go to council, city council, because we need to have their approval as well for the land use change in the general plan. And so that will occur, we hope, the first meeting in July, which will be the 19th, I believe, because we're not having one on the 4th of July week. So essentially, that would be the process we would go through. We have not, there is no environmental on this, because it's essentially a map change, if you will, designation change, so there's no environmental impact requirement. And then what will happen is, if the Planning Commission and the council approve these changes, then the staff will work with the developer to bring forward the appropriate site plan review, and we'll go back on that trail that we were before in terms of developing the site for the site plan review. And that will involve some environmental activity. Finally, I would like to comment that the staff is anticipating, because of the nature of the project and the environmental reviews and some comments we've had relative to the first negative declaration that we are working with. We had comments from when we submitted it to the clearinghouse of the state. We had comments from Lahontan and also from California Fish and Wildlife to the statement. So we will be working with the developer to go through those and try to work through those comments, and to provide it'll change to a mitigated negative deck. So my only comment is that if you approve this, there will be some more time invested in this project before you will be able to get to a final decision as to site plan review and any conditions thereof. In other words, what I'm saying to you is we're looking at probably a minimum of probably 60-day process to get this thing through site plan review. But right tonight, what we're looking for and asking you is to only look at the land use change and the zoning change request. And we recommend that the Planning Commission do so. And that's the end of my report. Be glad to answer questions.
Commissioner comments?
I have a question. I'm not sure I heard you correctly. Do both have to go before council, the land and the zoning? Or just
Primarily the land use
Just the
change.
land use.
Yeah, not the zoning. But we'll probably take both in front just for, process. But the truth is, legally, we're only required to do the land use, the land use. You have zoning, Andrew.
If you'll remember, when we discussed this before, one of the things, we had a larger map. And in the general plan, the original design was that these areas, would have different areas of general commercial throughout the community, such as where we have the gas station on Upjohn and Downs and stuff like that. So I'd like to point out that I'm for the zone change and for the change, because right across the street, we also have the same zoning. we're also just down the street from the old Walmart and the new Walmart. And so as that property is also developed, I'm not sure this particular piece requires to stay as a general commercial. And so that was my point, you know, when I originally brought it up as an informational thing to the commission. So any other questions that the commission has? Any public comment?
I did have one question.
Yes, sir.
In the last meeting, I remember we talked about they're going to merge both the parcels, right?
No, they have an intent eventually to merge the parcels, but right now, they haven't come to us with a parcel merger. That, I believe, is owned actually by two entities, and we're not even sure how they're going to do the project yet. So that will be discussed at the site plan review process. But Mr. Britton may have more information.
Well, Daryl Whitten with Cornerstone Engineering. The parcels may be merged together, but currently they're owned by two different LLCs, but you basically have the same owners in both LLCs. So they'll probably do a lot line adjustment so they can phase the property, and if they have to do financing on the project, they'll only encumber one parcel, and then they'll use the other parcel for another phase. So it'll still remain two parcels, but the lot lines will be adjusted to match a phase line. I do want to clarify one thing, though. My understanding is that zone changes and general plan amendments both have to be approved by the city council. So I want to make sure the resolution that's passed here that gets.
It is our intention to have both done by both entities.
Because the zone change is an amendment to the zone. It has to be done through the zoning.
From the general
ordinance,
plan.
and I don't think that the planning commission has authority. They just make recommendations. and the
That's
city
correct.
council does that. So this is exactly what the developer needs to move ahead with that apartment project. So we would strongly request that the planning commission do what's requested by staff and send this on to the city council for approval of the GPA and zone change. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Whitten. Any other commission comments? Do I have a proposal for the approval of the resolution 17-13, resolution of the Planning Commission, City of Ridgecrest approving the general plan amendment 17-01 for a zone change and zone change of 17-01? Do I have a second?
Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rudd-Bratton?
Aye.
Commissioner Yates?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders?
Aye.
Commissioner Ferris?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. Going on to item 8, discussion of other action items. Are there any other action items that staff or the commission feel like we need to address?
No.
Staff?
No.
Okay. Commissioner items and comments, one of the things that was left off, so I'll put right here is committee reports. Can we do committee reports in that section as well? So, and then commissioner items or comments at the same time. We'll start with Mr. Ferris.
Quality of life, we have suggested and opened the indoor playground at Kermit East Center Monday through Thursday. Also discussed the senior center and the rehab there. Kermit E baseball fields was a topic we discussed as well.
Okay, Mr. Sanders?
Do you want me to give the infrastructure report, or
Please.
do you want to do that?
Please, no, go ahead.
Okay. So, infrastructure committee met on Thursday of last week. The first thing we discussed, so I had a conflicting committee that I've been asked to serve on, which is the Public Lands Roundtable Committee. And so we changed the meeting time. We kept the date the same, but we're going to change the meeting time to 4 p.m. on Thursdays, so that I can head off to my next fun-filled evening meeting. So we also discussed bringing on an in-house, a building inspector in-house. Currently, we're using the County of Kern's building inspector, and contracting with them. We discussed dust abatement, and we had a really great discussion with the new wastewater treatment facility. We had the Navy's reps, Captain Dale, is his name correct? Captain Dale came out, as well as, I forget his rank, but Longbottom, Brian Longbottom. Commander, thank you, Peggy. They came out and they added quite a bit to that discussion, so that was really great. And then we also discussed the Bowman Channel, which is something we've had to deal with a lot in this, in the commission here, is properties and developers right next to the Bowman Channel. We're requiring them to have some very significant and onerous changes to the Bowman Channel when, quite honestly, they contribute very little to that. So I think we got some good clarification on that, though, that we do not have to require them to make improvements to the Bowman Channel. That's what I understood from that. Is
Yes.
that- okay. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Yates?
Yes, Commissioner Roger Bretton and myself for the city org. Some of the things we discussed was the codification of the municipal code, motion for adding items to the city council agenda. We also discussed some of the laws about parking on the streets. And we discussed, in short, the curfew law. And one of my favorite, we talked about capturing the internet sales taxes and how we are being shorted as a city by like 1.1 million, where some of the, we had some citizens in there that have done that math. I don't know how accurate it was, but so one, a couple things that we put on the future agenda was we wanted to talk about the drug prevention hotline, something that came up in the city council a month or so ago. The city transit system, and to do something about budget analysis. So, unless you had anything else to add.
No, you covered
That
everything.
was it?
Yep.
We had a good meeting, actually. We had a good meeting.
Mr. Raja Ratan, anything else?
Nothing.
Okay, what about the
Media
Media and Art Committee?
Media and Art Committee, nothing is going on, but the committee was awarded a Chamber of Commerce awarded beautification award to the Media and Art Committee, which was received by Mr. Alexander, and I was there, and some of the committee members, Dan Spurgeon was there, Tex was there, Debbie Benson was there. So it was a good recognition for the committee for their hard work. Thanks for your leadership. We missed you.
Thank you. I had a conflict, I had a doctor's appointment. Hate those things. All right, thank you. Commissioners, staff items, we have a report from the city engineer on projects going on in the city.
Yes, Mr. Testing? Testing. Oh, there we go. Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the Ridgecrest Municipal Code requires me as a city engineer to give reports on city projects to the Planning Commission. I have a quick rundown of projects. My report is going to be verbal to you. If there's something, a project of interest to you, I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. I'll quickly go through these. We have completed our pavement management study, in which the final plan was submitted before the Infrastructure Committee and received by the City Council at the very last council meeting. Our sewer line repair and replacement program, we have the final report. It is being reviewed by the City Manager, Public Works Director. We were scheduled to present that to the Infrastructure Committee, the very last committee. The City Manager, however, wanted to review the report first to be prepared for anything there. We anticipate that to be submitted at the next Infrastructure Committee meeting. We're proceeding with the design on the east side of Downs. This is a RSTP grant project for the east side of South Downs. We're currently going through the environmental review process with Caltrans. Council also recently authorized the funds to be expended for the pole relocations along Downs. We'll be dealing with that very soon. I'll be speaking to the city manager tomorrow about that very item. We are currently in design. We've just authorized the design for our CMAQ project. That's a congestion mitigation air quality grant for South Sunland. The South Sunland project goes between Bowman Road and Dolphin. We've also got our CMAQ signal synchronization project. We're purchasing some of the hardware, computer hardware systems, such that the contractor can come in and finish the installation of our signal synchronization project. We have a potential change order that I'm looking at for the south side of Bowman Road, adjacent to the old Walmart site. We recently completed the ADA curb return at Bowman and China Lake. And we've got the Tractor Supply Company that's completed all their ADA driveway improvements along that reach of Bowman. And Caltrans has authorized me to go ahead and entertain a change order for now doing the paving, that section of paving that's remaining there for restoration. I do have RFPs that are being evaluated right now for our HSIP projects. We have a call for projects, or actually we've been awarded these HSIP projects, and I'm entertaining RFPs for consultants for the design and construction management for the Downs and Bowman Road intersection, as well as the school crosswalk improvements. We do have our CDBG grant for the senior center improvements. That is at a 60% design stage. We recently, the last council meeting, the city council elected to take on the senior center parking lot restoration, and I assume that staff will be handling that project. We've contacted the county regarding the CDBG grant regarding that project, and we'll be speaking with the county planner tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to discuss what we might be able to do with those CDBG funds, how we might be able to reapply those to a city project. Our Inyokern bus transfer station, we received bids on the concrete work, the flat work for the bus station, and that was awarded at the last council meeting. We're in the process of collecting bonds and insurance to be able to issue a notice to proceed on that work. We have our CDBG transition plan and ADA phase 1 for ADA improvements along Ridgecrest Boulevard. We're currently in the 60% design stage on that particular project. We are doing staff has been asked to do an assessment of a slurry and micropaving machine. I'll be going up to Modesto this Thursday to meet with the street superintendent as well as the fleet maintenance manager to observe the operation of a slurry micropave equipment and to obtain data for cost of operation and maintenance of that type of equipment, to do an analysis of a life cycle analysis for that piece of equipment. Staff has been successful in receiving a grant, an HSIP grant that's called the Systemic Street Analysis Program Report. It's a $75,000 grant that's been awarded to the city. We're awaiting Caltrans. It's a new program, and we're awaiting Caltrans requirements for being able to launch that particular project. The last council meeting, we successfully had our public hearings for our assessment districts. We've got 2 assessment districts for lighting, landscaping, maintenance district, and 1 for a special drainage benefit assessment district. And each year we're required to go through the public engineer's report, adopting an engineer's report for costs, and then authorization or a public hearing to hear protest, and then authorize the assessments to be taken on by the county assessor's office. And so we've just accomplished that at the last council meeting. Also at the last council meeting, the city council did authorize municipal code amendments for allowing variances and other changes to the development process. They've also authorized the city attorney to work with staff in crafting the language for some code amendments. That'll be taken back to the infrastructure committee to then make recommendation through the planning commission to the city council. We're currently in plan checks right now with, we've got 2 tracks that we're currently reviewing improvement plans, and also we have a parcel map that we're looking at improvement plans for. So we have considerable plan check activity. Staff is also working with Walmart's attorney to craft language that's required for processing or filing their parcel map for the Walmart project. There's CC&Rs that are required, and completion of the development agreement to then allow us to move towards the parcel map approval process. And currently we're trying to do a TDA grant application for bicycles and pedestrians. We've got a grant application that's due on the 17th of July, and we're preparing that grant application for a couple of candidate projects for bicycles and pedestrians. We also have a current a call for applications. We've awarded a contract for another CMAQ application. This is for a grant for a couple of candidate streets, one of which is for, I believe it was Dolphin, that we were trying to get between China Lake and College Heights. It's a portion that's within the city's right away that would connect China Lake Boulevard to College Heights. And that concludes my report for projects within the city.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. So one other comment I'd give to the commissioners, and this is just for background, is this morning in the meeting we discussed in the general plan we require this water retention that we talked about here tonight in a lot of these subdivisions. Well, there's no budget line item to take care of them. Okay, and so in most instances they're doing a special assessment district or a lighting and maintenance district, and so the recommendation was we send it to committee. We're going to send it to infrastructure for now, whether it goes to finance or what, and how those funds are to be held and distributed, and the contracts are awarded to local landscapers to take care of the landscaping and so on and so forth. But it's informational from the standpoint when we require things, then there's also a trickle down that ends up being an expense to either Parks and Rec or streets or somebody else, and we need to make sure that in our consideration that we're not overburdening the staff that we have with our conditions, even though they're there as a general plan or general rule. So that's what we've recommended that it does, is it goes back to committee. So that's just the information. Any other things that we need to discuss? Comments from commissioners? My only one is thanks, Lauren, for your work, and Gary for your work. We have Gary for another month or two, and he's decided to travel on the road, up and down the street or whatever. Anyway, we appreciate their service, and Jessica, we appreciate that you're here. I'm very appreciative that our mayor comes to our meetings so that she's aware of the action that we've taken and what's coming up to the city council. So I want to thank them. And Paul, your service as well. So thank you so much. And with that, we will adjourn.